So I'll try to answer this piece of question. Which public policies on the national, I'll include the state agenda, because of São Paulo, we actually have some of the universities dedicated to some state-related issues, had an academic origin or a decisive contribution for universities. So my idea, I'll talk quickly about 5 examples. I chose examples that are basically very well known for everybody here. Because my intention is not to describe those examples or those cases or study those cases, but just as to use them for some framework related to how these could contribute to our purpose of developing indicators related to public policies which are developed under the influence of universities or higher education institutions. So first example is very well known, health. We have the Butantan Institute vaccines. So I don't have to talk much about that and the importance. You'll see that I'm not adding any university or institution names here because in some cases they are specific, in some cases there are various of them involved but the people that know these examples, and most of you know very well, will identify the universities involved. Productivity in agriculture. So we have the Campinas Institute of Agronomy and Embrapa, and we have this series of impacts on crops in Brazil for coffee, soybeans, other grains, sugarcane, etc. So this has been very important for the country in terms of its general economic development. In Brazil is one of, I think now is the second largest producer of food and agriculture products. Biofuels, I think this is also well known, the ProAlco project. And now we have biodiesel and other processes involved. So this is related both to agriculture in a sense, but it's also related to other technologies in transportation or in the production of electrical energy. For example, Brazil produces 10% of all its electrical power from biofuels, which is, I think, the largest in the world right now. Aeronautical industry, aircraft industry, Embraer, it's a large international company with international presence. And this was a very particular project involving a public policy. So it was kind of hidden from the general public until it became more and more known, but this has also be very important. And I'll add one thing here that people may find it strange, but developing a state research funding agency like FAPESP is a very special thing for a country like Brazil. I think this is interesting because even countries like that have a federal system, most of them don't have local research funding agencies which are really relevant. And this didn't happen by chance or is just a matter of fact. It's related to the fact that we had a state university at the time when FAPESP was founded 50 years ago, 60 years ago, only the University of São Paulo and small federal institutions. So this is very important. It's very important for the state, and it's a public policy. So let me now go over these cases. I'll use them as examples for some characteristics which made those enterprises successful. Okay, so first, a clear vision. All of them start with some clear vision. Of course, this vision may change. There's some flexibility and things change a long time. But it's important that all of them had from the start some clear and very developed vision. Second thing is planning and execution. So it's not something that just happened by chance, okay? And there is the role of government, role of external partners, in the case of universities, in industry, and so on, role of the higher education institutions, of course, and it's also depends, the planning and the execution, the model used depends on the area. So it's not something that you can have a recipe that if you're planning something that will have a public impact, public policy impact, that you'll follow some recipe. No, you have to look at the area and develop the model and the planning and the execution for that particular case. So for example, it's very different to develop vaccines than it's compared to developing an aircraft industry and so on, or to develop a research funding agency. All of them have very different structures and relationship between institutions, organizations, etc. Third, long-term commitment and investment. So none of those projects developed in just a few years. Just to take the aircraft industry, starting in 1948 and 47, the institute to train engineers. Then you had some research involved there. And then you had Embraer founded 20 years later, and then another 20, 25 years later that it really blossomed into the international company we know today. So this takes more than half a century to happen. But I think the main point is that you don't have a public interest or public policy project go forward and be successful if you don't have relevance either or in economic public interest relevance. So it doesn't matter if you have a bright idea, but it doesn't have any kind of resonance either for economic or for the public interest. So I don't think it will go forward. And here the issues are dissemination of the project in terms of how the results are used and so on, how the results are appropriate. So how an industry or a government agency or government institution, an institute, a government department uses results from that project, that enterprise. And finally, which is directly related to our theme, is the perceptions, how internal community, external partners, stakeholders, and the public see the project in the results. So finally, how institutions could better show their roles in helping those enterprises being successful. So some are obvious: systematic dissemination of results, impacts, and reports, site, etc. Continuously promote internal participation by younger faculty and students. The first one is related to more external, let's say, acceptance of the project, support. But you need to have internal support in the institutions. So it cannot be something that is unrelated to the whole university environment. So you have to get involved, younger people involved, so that it has continuation, has developed as well. And every time you do something related, you include the partners and stakeholders, okay? But finally, related again to our issue, how we develop indicators for those projects and enterprise, for the results, for their impacts. So it has to have both general aspects and specific aspects, which depend on the projects. So, for example, impacts relate to local, regional, national, international scope. Impacts relate to social, cultural, and economic aspects. I'm a little loose here with cultural. I'm not going to discuss what's cultural. I mean general cultural aspects, arts, activity and so on. Not that some anthropological concept here, just a basic general sense. And identify people and institutions, organizations most impacted by the results. So, and of course you can go for other. So I'll end here because I think the first presentation today had a very interesting example with a public policy related to ethics that was reported. So we don't have here in Brazil still a system of evaluating the institutions in that sense. So, but we can start at the institutions to develop those case studies, either of individual projects or by individual researchers or by larger projects, and then develop those case studies and publish them in various aspects. And if we do this, maybe at some point this will be used and we can instigate government and other sectors to look at that, and then we can make a better case for support, continuing support for higher education in the way we look for. So thank you.